What if the liberation of Britney Spears was never the end of the story, but the opening chapter of a much darker Hollywood expose? For years, millions of fans mobilized under the hashtag #FreeBritney banner, believing that dismantling her 13-year conservatorship would finally grant the pop icon her ultimate freedom. But as the dust settled on her courtroom victory, the digital landscape shifted from celebration to a profound, unsettling skepticism. Suddenly, the strange, looping choreography of her Instagram videos wasn't just viewed as eccentric self-expression, it became a battleground for internet sleuths hunting for hidden AI anomalies, coded cries for help, and proof of a lingering captivity hidden behind the glare of social media. Now, a wave of unsealed legal documents and explosive industry arrests has pushed the speculation past the boundaries of fandom, tying Britney's historic struggle to a vast, systemic web of power. The intersection is staggering. The same elite corporate management structure that dictated Britney's daily life, monitored her home, and oversaw her multi-million-dollar empire on paper, is now being named in federal filings surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. Simultaneously, digital investigators combing through the infamous Jeffrey Epstein data caches are tracking names that bridge the gap between political elite circles and Hollywood's most protected royalty. From the dark industry warnings echoed by industry insiders like Jaguar Wright, to the haunting retroactive lens applied to old daytime talk show interviews with stars like Justin Bieber, a chilling narrative is taking shape. It suggests that the absolute control exerted over Britney Spears was never an isolated family tragedy. Instead, it may have been the blueprint for a highly organized machinery designed to exploit, silence, and commodify the world's biggest talents, leaving the public to wonder, who else is still caught in the trap? To truly comprehend how deep this rabbit hole goes, one must look exactly where the legal paperwork and corporate registries collide. The financial mechanisms that governed Britney Spears' captivity for over a decade are not historical relics. They are actively being unzipped in real-time federal courtrooms, exposing an architectural framework shared by some of the music industry's most powerful figures. At the center of this structural intersection sits TreeStar Sports and Entertainment Group, a powerhouse boutique firm founded by Lou Taylor. For years, the public perceived Britney's conservatorship as an isolated, tragic family dispute spearheaded by her father, Jamie Spears. However, investigative records and Britney's own poignant accounts in her memoir, The Woman in Me, paint a radically different picture, one where a calculated corporate apparatus pulls the strings. Britney explicitly detailed the suffocating atmosphere engineered by TreeStar executives, noting that it felt as though her father and a prominent employee named Robin Grenell completely ruled her life, tracking her movements, as if she were a dangerous predator rather than the machine generating their wealth. While TreeStar and its leadership have adamantly denied any wrongdoing, stating they did not create the conservatorship and were merely appointed by the court to handle business management, the internet began asking an entirely different set of questions when identical corporate signatures started surfacing in modern, criminal scandals. The digital theory exploded into verifiable legal reality when music producer Rodney, Lil Rod, Jones filed an explosive federal civil lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs. Amidst the dozens of horrifying allegations detailing illicit activities and systematic manipulation, a familiar name emerged from the legal text: Robin Grenell. The lawsuit did not just frame Grenell as a passive bystander, it explicitly alleged that she acted as an accountant within the operations, allegedly handling specific bookkeeping elements and managing payments directed toward individuals involved in Combs' private operations. For observers who had watched the hashtag #FreeBritney movement unfold, the revelation sent shockwaves through the community. The exact same operational specialist accused by journalists of setting up secret audio surveillance in Britney's bedroom and mirroring her personal text messages was now appearing in federal documents, allegedly executing complex, off-the-books financial compliance for Hollywood's most notorious mogul. This is where speculation evolves into concrete institutional critique. The overlapping roles suggest that the entertainment industry operates on a shared Rolodex of specific handlers, highly specialized managers, whose literal job description involves establishing an invisible perimeter around a celebrity, managing their public autonomy out of existence while ensuring the multi-million-dollar revenue stream continues to flow unimpeded into corporate accounts. The pattern extends far beyond a single intersection between two artists. Investigative deep dives, alongside public statements from other high-profile musicians, indicate that the legal dynamic imposed upon Britney Spears was actively pitched to other vulnerable stars during moments of personal crisis. Public statements from Lindsay Lohan's father, Michael Lohan, allege that during Lindsay's highly publicized struggles with the paparazzi and substance abuse in the late 2000s, similar legal maneuvers and corporate managers attempted to establish an identical conservatorship model over her assets and personal freedom. Similarly, rock icon Courtney Love has spoken out aggressively online, claiming that identical corporate forces attempted to corner her finances and use legal guardianship filings to gain absolute control over the massive Nirvana music catalog and intellectual property. Even internet sleuths frequently point back to Kanye West's erratic social media statements from late 2020, where he explicitly claimed that his family and a specific network of managers attempted to place an involuntary psychiatric hold on him in a manner he directly compared to the film Get Out. When viewed independently, these instances look like separate celebrity breakdowns. When viewed structurally, they reveal a predatory industry blueprint. Wait for an immensely wealthy asset to reach an emotional or psychological breaking point under the relentless glare of the media, step in under the guise of protection and rehabilitation, and legally lock down their signature, their likeness, and their estate. As the public began pulling at these corporate threads, the unsealing of the Jeffrey Epstein court documents provided fuel for even wilder digital speculation. Content creators quickly noticed that typing Britney Spears into the searchable legal databases generated multiple hits, sparking a massive wave of viral videos claiming she was a frequent flyer on the infamous Lolita Express private jet. However, a literal, objective analysis of the unsealed documents reveals a far less scandalous, yet deeply corporate reality. The majority of the search hits stem from an indexed 2009 email exchange between disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and Dr. Mark Tramo, a highly respected neuroscientist. Medical professionals and legal analysts who reviewed the text point out that the email had absolutely nothing to do with illicit trafficking or personal relationships. Instead, Dr. Tramo was attempting to pitch a legitimate scientific study exploring how localized music therapy could significantly improve neurological development and clinical outcomes for premature infants resting in neonatal intensive care units, NICUs. The mention of Britney Spears in those records was purely transactional. Because she was signed to a major label, executives at Universal Music were casually throwing her name around as a potential high-profile ambassador or donor to attract Epstein's immense capital toward funding the medical grant. Furthermore, the note regarding her custody issue highlights that because she was entirely stripped of her legal autonomy under the conservatorship at that exact moment, any negotiation involving her public appearance, her philanthropic name, or financial backing was being decided entirely behind closed doors by corporate handlers, without her knowledge or direct consent. While the internet's obsession with Britney's name in the Epstein files proved to be a misunderstanding of academic fundraising, the true shock of the unsealed manifests lies in who was consistently documented on those flights. The logs detail a profound contrast between name drops and active, systemic participation. Supermodel Naomi Campbell's name appears multiple times within the unsealed flight manifests, indicating frequent travel on Epstein's private aircraft. While Campbell has forcefully and consistently denied any knowledge of or involvement in Epstein's criminal network, maintaining that she was purely part of his broad, international social circle, her frequent presence on the manifests continues to stand as a symbol of how seamlessly the upper echelons of the fashion, music, and media worlds integrated with individuals operating predatory operations. It highlights a culture of willful blindness, where elite figures shared private transport, attended the same exclusive galas, and ignored the warning signs of systemic exploitation right in front of them. The public is no longer willing to accept these overlaps as simple coincidences. The revelation that the exact same individuals who monitored Britney's domestic life were allegedly managing the financial compliance of Diddy's private operations has permanently altered how audiences consume pop culture. The glamour of the music industry has been peeled back, revealing a stark, transactional network where the line between a legal manager and a literal captive becomes terrifyingly thin. Beyond the financial registries and federal court filings, the true impact of this systemic control manifests most visibly in the digital space. Following the official termination of her conservatorship in late 2021, the public expected a triumphant return to normalcy. Instead, the reality presented on social media sparked a new wave of intense anxiety among her global fan base. Audiences began meticulously analyzing every video uploaded to her Instagram account, noticing a profound shift in her artistic expression. Once celebrated as a generation-defining, precision-perfect dancer, she now appeared in repetitive, looping clips, dancing erratically in her home. The polished choreography of her youth was replaced by raw, unedited movements that left many viewers questioning her true state of well-being. Observers openly debated whether these posts represented a woman finally experiencing unfiltered personal freedom, or if they were looking at a deeply distressed individual struggling to process decades of intense trauma under the public eye. This digital anxiety quickly evolved into complex internet theories regarding the authenticity of the media being shared. A dedicated faction of online investigators began slowing down her dance clips frame by frame, hunting for visual anomalies that might suggest the use of advanced technology. When a video featured compression artifacts near her neck, viewers claimed it was an artificial intelligence glitch failing to properly map a deepfake over a body double, rather than a simple camera distortion reacting to a spinning necklace and tied-up hair. Every detail became subject to extreme scrutiny, from the apparent shadows on the walls to the reflections in the windows, with some users suggesting she was being filmed behind protective glass under continued duress. While mainstream media analysts dismissed these claims as wild internet folklore, the persistent distrust highlighted a deeper truth. After a decade of being systematically lied to by corporate handlers, the public simply could not accept that what they were seeing on their screens was the complete reality. The skepticism deepened as independent commentators began connecting these visual oddities back to the broader, historical operations of the entertainment industry. The conversation expanded dramatically when figures like singer Jaguar Wright began publicly speaking out, alleging that the public had only scratched the surface of a highly organized Hollywood network. Wright and other critics suggested that powerful industry figures had spent decades protecting one another, creating an insular environment where young, vulnerable talent could be easily exploited. Old daytime television interviews were suddenly dragged back into the spotlight, viewed through a modern and decidedly darker lens. Clips of Sean Diddy Combs appearing on major talk shows, casually joking about taking a teenage Justin Bieber on a wild, unmonitored 48-hour weekend experience when the young singer first entered the industry, were no longer seen as harmless Hollywood banter. Instead, they were re-evaluated by audiences as alarming public admissions of an unchecked predatory pipeline operating in plain sight. This retroactive scrutiny cast a long shadow over the early careers of multiple pop stars who were discovered at incredibly young ages. Digital sleuths pointed out a recurring pattern where mega-celebrities would identify young talent on platforms like YouTube, pull them into elite industry circles under the promise of mentorship, and then oversee a slow, public unraveling. Bieber's own subsequent emotional public statements, where he broke down in tears expressing a desperate desire to protect new teenage artists from going through the same isolating, untrustworthy experiences he endured, was cited as proof of the immense hidden pressures behind the glamour. The narrative shifted from one of simple celebrity burnout to a systemic critique of a digital breeding ground, where young performers are discovered online, milked for massive corporate profit, and then left to crash out publicly while the world watches the fallout play out in real time. As the public narrative grew increasingly chaotic, online spaces filled with even more polarizing theories, ranging from coded language hidden in ordinary conversations to aesthetic choices on television sets allegedly mirroring structures found on private estates. While these extreme interpretations lacked any verified evidence, their viral spread demonstrated a profound, collective breaking point in public trust. Audiences looked at the vast fortunes generated by these stars, with reports suggesting hundreds of millions of dollars missing from corporate accounts during periods of legal guardianship, and realized that the industry had perfected a method of absolute containment. The question was no longer just about the specific mechanics of one pop star's legal struggle, but rather who else had been caught in the exact same net, forced into absolute silence while the machinery of the entertainment industry continued to turn out billions of dollars at their expense. The vast fortunes generated by these iconic performers became the battleground where the final remnants of their autonomy were stripped away. For decades, the sheer economic power of a global superstar was thought to be an armor against exploitation, but the unsealing of forensic accounting records proved that immense wealth merely attracts larger predators. Financial investigators examining the aftermath of these multi-year legal guardianships began uncovering massive discrepancies, with internal reports suggesting that up to $600 million had systematically vanished from corporate registries, routed through shell companies, offshore accounts, and elite business management firms. The realization that an artist could sell out stadiums worldwide, break global streaming records, and still be left completely dependent on an allowance handed down by corporate handlers sent shockwaves through the legal community. It became undeniably clear that the legal infrastructure designed to protect these assets had been inverted, transforming into an absolute containment system engineered to extract maximum capital, while rendering the individual entirely powerless to defend their own estate. As the financial networks began to untangle under the weight of federal grand jury subpoenas, the human cost of this institutional containment took a devastating toll. The intense psychological pressure of living under constant surveillance, where every phone call is recorded, every movement is tracked by hired security, and every personal relationship must be vetted by a board of directors, pushed many artists to their absolute breaking point. Close colleagues and industry insiders began breaking their non-disclosure agreements to describe the harrowing reality of the backstage environment. Performers were routinely subjected to forced medication regimens to ensure they could meet grueling tour schedules, their biological vulnerability commodified to protect the investments of multinational conglomerates. When these individuals attempted to rebel, the machinery reacted with clinical precision, deploying targeted media campaigns to paint them as unstable, volatile, and dangerously erratic, thereby justifying the continued enforcement of their captivity to a compliant public. The public narrative surrounding these dark Hollywood dynamics reached a critical mass when the legal protections shielding the industry's most powerful moguls began to disintegrate entirely. The historic arrest and subsequent federal indictments targeting figures like Sean Diddy Combs shattered the illusion of elite invulnerability, triggering a panicked exodus within the upper echelons of the entertainment industry. High-profile executives, celebrity attorneys, and corporate managers, who had spent decades operating with absolute impunity, suddenly found themselves facing intense scrutiny as federal investigators began seizing thousands of electronic devices, private server data, and decades of financial ledgers. The panic spread rapidly through exclusive Hollywood circles, with reports emerging of prominent figures scrubbing their digital footprints, selling off luxury real estate assets at massive losses, and quietly relocating to international jurisdictions without extradition treaties to escape the impending legal avalanche. In a desperate bid to distance themselves from the imploding domestic industry, several of Hollywood's most recognizable figures sought permanent refuge across the Atlantic. The United Kingdom, particularly the secluded and historic estates of the Cotswolds, became the primary sanctuary for displaced American entertainment royalty seeking a quiet lifestyle completely insulated from the relentless glare of federal subpoenas and predatory media outlets. Establishing massive, heavily fortified rural compounds, these former icons attempted to rebrand their sudden departures as a voluntary, philosophical rejection of American political division and cultural chaos. Surrounded by vast acreage, private security details, and high-tech counter-surveillance systems, they attempted to build a localized illusion of peace, trading the high-stakes pressure of the studio system for a highly managed, pastoral retirement designed to outlast the storm of public fury. Yet, even within the safety of international exile, the fundamental gravity of the entertainment industry proved impossible to resist entirely, as the machinery sought to resurrect its most profitable intellectual properties. Breaking years of absolute public silence, major Hollywood trade publications suddenly confirmed that negotiations had concluded for a massive, high-profile return to global cinema. Major studios announced that the most iconic voices of the previous generation were officially stepping back into the recording booth, reprising universally beloved animated characters for brand-new feature-length projects designed to capitalize on international nostalgia. The announcement ignited an intense debate across the global entertainment landscape, forcing audiences to confront a profound ethical dilemma. The corporate strategy was obvious: bypass the messy, dark realities of human controversy by filtering the performer's return through the unassailable innocence of a beloved childhood character, using digital animation as the ultimate public relations shield. This unexpected corporate pivot raised the final, defining question for the modern pop culture era. Can the global public truly separate a timeless, fictional piece of art from the harrowing systemic exploitation that occurred behind the scenes of its creation? As production began on these next high-profile cinematic chapters, the internet remained deeply fractured, caught between the desire for nostalgic comfort and the demand for absolute institutional accountability. The reality of the modern media landscape proved that no matter how far an individual runs, no matter how many hundreds of millions of dollars are spent to alter public perception, and no matter how pristine the cinematic illusion appears, the digital archive never forgets. The cracks in the Hollywood empire have permanently altered the audience's gaze, transforming passive consumers into hypervigilant observers who understand that beneath the glittering surface of fame lies a complex, terrifying machinery, leaving the world to wonder who else is still trapped inside, waiting for the curtain to finally fall.